Hello, one and all. Welcome back to the channel where we discuss second citizenships and residency by investment. My name is Jonathan, and today I'll be taking you through the latest updates for the Portugal Golden Visa in 2025, including the legal position, the revamped process, and the new timelines that you can expect. We will start today's video with the basic background before explaining a key issue seen last year, which is essentially delays to the process. We'll look at what the government is now doing to tackle this issue and what it means for new Golden Visa applicants right here 2025. We will then move on to the investment landscape as it sits here today. We will touch on the external factors and explain why Portugal's Golden Visa is coming under increasing pressure this year, and then look at internal factors within Portugal, namely how the new and improved immigration authority is tackling its capacity challenges through greater resources and a new and improved process that is dramatically improving efficiency, much needed after the issues seen in 2024, which we will mention in just a second. We will then take you through the updated process and timelines that you can now expect on your Golden Visa journey before moving on to the investment landscape. We will explain what qualifies, what doesn't, and look at the emerging trends now being seen in the market here today. After that, we will touch on the investment piece. There is quite a lot to unpick here, so I will be pointing in the direction of a dedicated video on this topic when we get there, but we'll still do a quick overview of the key topics of risk, selecting an investment, and the main options available too. Quick recap on the basic background then to get us started. Now, the Golden Visa was launched in 2012 and has since proven extremely popular as it is the most successful route to obtaining a European passport remotely. You do not need to relocate to Portugal, and yet you can still obtain citizenship. It is the only country that offers this unless you are willing to donate 1 million euros or an even greater sum than that to a government here in the European Union. Golden Visa is an investment visa wherein you receive a residency permit in Portugal in return for a substantial investment into the country, and that is usually 500,000 euros. That being said, there are ways to reduce that capital requirement down if you're able to structure the investment in an intelligent way. We will be discussing that a little bit later on. It is a very popular scheme, certainly in recent years especially. Around 30,000 people have now received their Golden Visas, and the annual case numbers are increasing pretty much year over year. You can include all of your immediate family, almost all of your immediate family, parents and children, but generally speaking, siblings cannot be included. Now, our team and I are here to help advise you if you're unsure about your family member's eligibility, so do feel free to ask. Note, you must also have a clean criminal record if you are to apply. That applies to everyone that's joining the application ticket. This is now a proven and legally viable pathway to citizenship, even without living in Portugal. As I mentioned, citizenships are now being granted to Golden Visa holders that meet the requirements, and that includes those that have not been living in Portugal and who are not tax residents here. You'll be interested to know that my team here has managed more than 10% of all the Portuguese Golden Visas ever issued. We really have seen it all before here, and we've navigated all the various iterations of the program with our 100% successful track record intact. And we plan to continue doing so. So if you do end up working with us, you can rest assured that you're working with an expert and a tried, tested market leader. But that being said, if all of this is new information to you and you're just getting started with your Golden Visa journey, I would respectfully suggest that you watch my full overview video from the end of 2024. It has all the basic background that you need to know before you take things any further. It will contain a full analysis of what the Golden Visa is, how it works, the alternatives available, and a full breakdown as to whether the Golden Visa is right for you or whether you should be looking at something else instead. It also includes a full presentation that covers the road to citizenship and all the benefits that entails, and that is a key part of the Golden Visa journey, so do make sure you're au fait with those details. Now, in today's video, I would like us to focus a little bit more on the specific updates to the program for 2025. So rather than repeat myself here today, please check out that video first if you need the essential grounding on the Portugal Golden Visa. I will place a link to this video down below my head in the description box. And there will also be a pop-out banner in the top right-hand corner of your screen. It might have disappeared at this point, but you might have seen that. If not, have a look down the description box below me. Okay, getting started. Today's session in that case, let's begin by looking back at last year. Now, as many of you will know already, the Portugal Golden Visa has come under a little bit of fire lately due to slow processing times being seen by applicants. This is essentially a capacity issue in Portugal. Now, if we look at Portugal's visa programs across the board, at one point, the immigration authorities were facing a frankly enormous backlog of 400,000 applicants in the queue for in-person appointments. How could this happen? Well, there are several reasons for this. Firstly, the classic excuse, never really fixing delays caused by COVID-19 way back when, and that was coupled with a rather botched attempt at restructuring the immigration authorities back in 2022. Essentially, they tried to amalgamate the immigration authority, used to be called SEF back then, into the National Police. They said to abandon that, and anyway, long story short. Next, there was well, at least in my opinion, a completely senseless decision to close the online application portal to new applicants for 6 whole months. Naturally, if you close an application portal to a nationwide program for 6 months, that is going to generate some backlog and some consternation. Lastly, well, there was a massive scramble for visa appointments when Portugal took the decision to end its NHR program, its special non-habitual residence tax exemptions for new tax residents in the country. Now, this caused a frankly unprecedented spike in new migrants. This was at the very end of 2023. And new protocols such as the expression of interest were identified and became extremely popular. The D7 visa, of course, exploded in popularity, the passive income visa, the D8 visa as well, the digital nomad visa, as essentially new migrants into Portugal were scrambling to meet that deadline and avail of that special tax exemption. Now, essentially what that meant is that every single migrant that was coming in to secure that special tax status, they all needed appointments, and that took up valuable resources within the immigration authorities. This is an entirely separate video in itself. I could talk for ages about everything that we've seen in the last couple of years, but to cut that long story short, investors could expect a real-life journey of around 2 years to achieve their golden visa, with some even needing to wait up to 2.5 years, or even longer in extreme cases where, for example, the legal representation was not working super efficiently, or the applicant had missed an email, for example. There are other factors, of course, that can lead to that. But thankfully, these processing times are being addressed, as we will see in just a moment. Now, the first improvement that was made was to acknowledge the problem. Now, this was back in springtime of last year. In April 2024, Portugal passed a new nationality law that ensured that any processing time, waiting time for the Golden Visa would be counted as part of the 5 years required for citizenship eligibility. Now, that was great news for many, as that meant that the lengthy processing times would now only be a factor for those looking to relocate within that initial processing time, so let's call it 2 years, or those who need urgent visa-free access to the EU Schengen area if they have a particularly low-quality passport, for example. Now, applicants simply looking for a remote citizenship could now breathe a little bit easier, knowing that the processing time was essentially immaterial and not relevant for their greater citizenship journey. Now, the second improvement, apologies, the text is a little bit behind what I'm explaining here. But the second improvement that was made here was to dramatically increase resources at IMA. Now, that's the immigration authority. So that has essentially brought about a major uplift in case processing speed. Now, more on that in just a second, but to summarize, the expected timeline for new Golden Visa applicants now sits at around 18 months, with the additional expectation that this should gradually reduce down to a long-term baseline of around 12 months in the future. But all is not smooth sailing, I'm afraid. It seldom is when we talk about the world of international investor visas. But as we move through 2025, Portugal and its Golden Visa are coming under more concerted pressure. It was expected that Portugal would close its program back in 2023, with the European Union concerned about security risks from what it essentially deems to be citizenship for sale. Now, when Portugal chose to keep the Golden Visa open, they invited further criticism, and this is only intensifying in 2025. And why do I say that? Well, Spain is essentially closing its own Golden Visa program. D-Day for applications to the Spanish Golden Visa will be the 2nd of April of this year. So to move quickly, if you're looking at the Spanish Golden Visa in parallel to this, and of course, the likes of Ireland and Montenegro have also recently done away with their own investor visa programs for differing reasons. Now, other programs are also becoming less accessible through a raising of prices. Now, we've seen that in Greece and the Caribbean, for example, and that only serves to place Portugal into greater focus as the clear outlier when it comes to European residency and citizenship programs. Now, this means that we are somewhat likely to see further changes to the Golden Visa program at some point in the not too distant future. We can't say with any certainty, but the likelihood is there. Now, if the law were to change here, it is important to note that existing Golden Visa applicants would have grandfather rights to the program, essentially, as long as you have submitted an application at least one day prior to any new law taking effect. Your ability to access the program will be safeguarded. However, naturally, new applicants to the program would not have that same luxury and could find themselves missing the boat. So, what does that mean? Well, the best course of action, of course, therefore, is to simply be prepared. If we look at our recent experience, Portugal does tend to move with all the speed and urgency of an asthmatic sloth. When it comes to making changes to the law. That is just my personal opinion, lived experience. Apologies for that analogy, but it is always advisable to be well prepared so you can act quickly if the situation calls for it. Okay, turning the focus internally now, what has Portugal done to improve process in light of the challenges that it faces? Well, first, as we mentioned earlier, it has dramatically increased resources in order to tackle that backlog of circa 400,000 cases. As a result, IMA's daily caseload has dramatically increased from 800 per day to a frankly impressive 5,000. Now, there is a hard deadline that they had imposed of June 2025 to clear this backlog of cases, and it appears they are taking this very seriously. So, all things considered, we are still advising our new clients to prepare for a journey of 18 months to achieve their Golden Visa. There have also been some procedural changes aimed at streamlining the process. Firstly, very helpfully for many applicants actually, English, French, and Spanish language documentation now no longer needs to be translated to Portuguese for the application process. That is great news for our clients sitting in the USA, in Canada, the UK, Australia, Latin America, of course, amongst other places in the world. But yes, certainly a very interesting development there. Biometric sketching process as well has also been streamlined. So you will now be given between 30 to 90 days notice ahead of a fixed appointment date, which you are expected to keep. Now, we do not advise missing this appointment under any circumstances, or you will be unceremoniously moved to the very back of the queue. Rescheduling those appointments is also very tricky. So best practice would be to make sure you're working with someone that can get you the right appointment first time around in accordance with your availability. Now, lastly, the government fees are now payable at the biometric stage rather than upon the printing of the residence permits, as used to be the case. That is a minor change. It is moving it slightly earlier in the process, but again, that is aimed at improving efficiency. Okay. What does the process look like in 2025 there? Well, it is a little bit different to last year, as we are about to see. Now, the initial steps will remain the same. We'll get started by selecting an investment, performing the background checks, and signing our client agreement together. After that, you will get your tax numbers, open your Portuguese bank account, and begin preparing the requisite paperwork for the Golden Visa application. Now, all of this is done remotely, online, from the comfort of your home. We'll then complete the investment paperwork again, remotely and online. We will request that you begin moving the investment funds over to your new Portuguese bank account so that you can then complete the investment. This will take us up to roughly 3 months in the process, although for some investments this can be done in a little bit less time. It really depends on how complicated the structure is. And we will then now be ready to submit the application. Once the application has been submitted, you will get your ARI number. Now, ARI means Autorização de Residência para Atividade de Investimento, which is the technical term for the Golden Visa in Portugal. Please forgive my Portuguese. I know I'm still not quite fluent, but I am working on it. Hopefully, one day, if we keep working. But yes, anyway, this is a key milestone: getting that application submitted. Why? Because essentially, once your application has been submitted and you are in the system, you will have grandfather rights to your program if the law changes in the future. Now, as I mentioned, this is also when the 5-year clock towards citizenship eligibility begins ticking. From this point, it is just a matter of time before we have everything sorted and get your cards issued. Now, to do this, the first thing that needs to happen is you will need to come to Portugal for the biometric appointment. This happens after you have been given pre-approval from the authorities. That essentially means that someone sitting in an office somewhere has reviewed your dossier and given you the green light, and then they will invite you to come to Portugal to give your biometric information. Now, our team will meet you in Portugal, will accompany you for this biometric visit. And this is the first and only time in this entire process that we will actually need to be physically present here in the country. It takes place about a year into the process, give or take. Now, remember, you will have between 30 and 90 days notice for this, and the government fees will now need to be paid at this juncture. Once that appointment has taken place, so you've given your photos, your fingerprints, and all of that, we will take care of the rest. And essentially, that will mean liaising with the authorities to ensure efficient printing and issuing of those residence permits, and we will then have them couriered out to your home address. And that should bring us to about even 80 months in the process, and you'll be well on your way to achieving dual nationality. And of course, once you have the Golden Visa in your hand, it is then you will have full residence rights to Portugal and visa-free travel to the EU Schengen area if your passport doesn't already allow for that. And of course, getting the Golden Visa is only half the battle, because most of you watching this video will want to convert this to a citizenship later on. Now, the first item to highlight here is precedent. I mentioned this at the top of the show, but citizenships have been granted to Golden Visa holders since 2018. This is not new ground that we are treading here. This is a demonstrably effective process. The requirements here are 5 years of continuous legal residence. Now, legal residence, not tax residence, an important distinction. What that essentially means is making the Golden Visa investment and retaining it for 5 years whilst staying in Portugal for an average of 1 week per year and demonstrating sufficient ties to Portugal. Now, this requires either passing a language test known as CPLA, which is A2 level, or attending a sufficient language course if exams are a problem for you, or if you prefer to do this online rather than in a test center. Now, that language course will need to be a minimum of 150 hours. It will need to get you to A2 level. And of course, it will need to be accepted by the authorities. So do double check before you enroll to any course of that particular ilk. Now, whilst it is not a legal requirement, we do also recommend reinforcing your ties to Portugal beyond the minimum requirements of the language test and the physical stay. And we're recommending that to ensure a more robust application. You can essentially reinforce your ties to Portugal by joining Portuguese clubs, attending events of cultural or sporting significance to Portugal, and other activities with links to Portuguese culture. Essentially, the more Portuguese influences that you can welcome into your life, the better. So please do think about that. Now, please do note as well that the Golden Visa, once issued, is valid for a 2-year period. It must therefore be renewed periodically before we can apply it for citizenship. Now, most applicants can expect 2 renewals on their way through to citizenship. The renewal cost is in the region of €100 per person, in addition to a lawyer fee for processing the renewal. The actual figure is €82 at the time of recording, but I've rounded it to €100 here to allow for some buffer, and then, of course, the legal fees on top of that. Now, and then they're payable to a lawyer, of course. Now, after the 5 years, and once we are ready to make the citizenship application, we will apply for citizenship. A citizenship application will take anywhere between 6 months to 24 months from beginning to end. Therefore, it is reasonable to assume a total timeline of 7 years from the start of the Golden Visa journey, if we assume that top end of 24 months. I do recommend that my clients account for a full 24-month processing time in the back end, just to make sure that we are planned effectively for a total journey of 7 years. It may cut down to something like 6.5 if Portugal is efficient, but do account for 7 years as a total journey from beginning to end. Okay, moving on now. Looking at the rules for qualifying investments. Now, in case you were not already aware, real estate investments no longer qualify for the Portugal Gold Visa in any form. They used to, but that was abolished back in October 2023. So the viable routes for the Golden Visa as it currently stands are the following. Firstly, job creation. Now, this involves creating and maintaining at least 10 permanent positions of employment in Portugal. Now, that is quite high risk and hands-on, so it's not proven to be a very popular route. Even less popular, however, is the research activities route. This is because it entails an effective donation of €500,000 to scientific research institutions. Not usually smart financial planning, unless it's a particular passion project of yours. Next is another effective donation at half that price point, this time €250,000, 250,000, into a cultural heritage initiative or an approved artistic project. Again, not usually a smart play given the high sunk cost, but in my experience it has proven quite popular with some applicants. However, options 4 and 5 are where the majority of people look. So starting with option 4 here, category 4, investment funds. This requires you to invest €500,000 into a non-real estate mutual fund or investment fund, better said, that is regulated in Portugal via the CMVM, which is the Portugal Securities Market Commission, and that fund must invest at least 60% of its capital into Portuguese listed securities. Now, this particular category carries a unique set of challenges and considerations for investors, but we'll touch on that again in just a second. But finally, category 5, corporate investment. You might see this written as commercial incorporation. In some places, we'll refer to as corporate investment here. What this essentially requires is that you invest €500,000 again into a Portuguese company directly. And provided that investment is used to create or maintain a minimum of 5 permanent jobs, you can qualify for the Golden Visa in this way. Now, both of these categories, investment funds and corporate investment, are proving immensely popular these days. Why? Essentially because they offer greater control over the investment and the ability to build cases with stronger returns and more managed risk profiles. So naturally, this is where my team and I tend to focus most of our attention these days. It's also where we can add considerable value to the process. So at this point, you should have quite a solid understanding of the Gold Visa, the new process to obtain it, and the pathway to dual citizenship that it offers in 2025. At least I hope so. So now it's time to look at some more specific details, and that means understanding the investment options at your disposal. A word to the wise here, the world of international investments can be a confusing and sometimes downright intimidating place, especially for the inexperienced investor. There are many factors to consider before making a decision. So I have turned this into its own dedicated presentation in an effort to give this subject justice. It is, of course, my own video. I know I'm inherently rather biased on that point, but I do believe that this is essential viewing for anyone contemplating investing into the Portuguese Golden Visa in 2025. We will take a deeper look at the issue of risk, the different types of investment available, how to make sure that you select the right one for your circumstances, needs, and investor profile. Now, it cannot be understated that the right decision here can literally be the difference between a life-changingly positive experience or a poor decision that can cost you financially and be the source of significant regret for many years to come. So before you commit to any investment, make sure that you understand all of the factors at play. Do yourself a favor, go and watch this video next. I have placed the link down in the description box below my head. Also, there should be a pop-out banner in the top right-hand corner of your screen. So do feel free to head on over there. Now, in this video, we will also take a look at two of our most popular investment cases. And I've tried to take two different approaches there. One of those is a donation-style option aimed at offering Gold Visa the minimum possible capital injection. And the other will be a more classic investment-style approach, selected for various reasons that I'll make sure to clarify and elaborate in that video. So if you are in the market for the Portugal Golden Visa, you do want to take a look at these cases before committing to an investment of any kind. So as I mentioned, link in the description box down below me to check that out. Okay, let's wrap up today's video then with a quick reminder about who we are, what we do. So my name is Jonathan Ralph. I'm a partner here at Holborn Assets. We are one of the leading expat wealth management firms in the world. We've been going since 1998. We do have quite considerable scale. We look after 20,000 clients across more than 100 different countries now. And even though the majority of our work is done online these days, we also provide services out of more than 20 different physical offices around the world. We have hundreds of highly qualified wealth management professionals on staff, and I include myself in that. And we are the #1 Golden Visa agent working in Portugal today based on volume. Our team has processed more than 1,000 Golden Visa applications with a 100% track record of success. We are still rated as excellent on Trustpilot. Long may that continue. So feel free to check out the reviews on there to learn more about us from real clients. You can also run a dedicated search on my name to learn a little bit more about my own clients, their journeys up to now, and also a little bit more about myself. So essentially, who am I? Well, I'm a partner for the Western Mediterranean region. That means that I divide my time up between Portugal and Spain. So depending on when we speak, if you book in a meeting, the background may change depending on where I am in the world. Now, I know it's probably a little bit crass to mention this, so apologies. I'm going to do it anyway, but I was recently named our top residency and citizenship by Investment Advisor for last year. And that's something that I'm extremely proud of, actually. And my wonderful team that works behind the scenes, you never see them, but they're a big, big part of that. And we've helped an awful lot of people to secure their Portuguese residency at this point. So if you'd like to become another of our success stories, you can get in touch with me directly. So my email address is on the screen there, jonathan.ralph@holbornassets.com. And if you scan the QR code in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen there, you'll also be able to book in a meeting with me directly to discuss your objectives for a Golden Visa or second citizenship. There's also a link to my calendar, which again is down in the description box below my head. And I'll also pin a comment to the top of the comments section below this video so that you can access that easily. Now, initial meetings are completely free. I do not charge for my time until we've taken the decision to work together, and that is part of a project plan that is agreed up front. So meetings are completely free. There's no pressure. There are no obligations. They are merely aimed at providing you with all the information that you need to take the best decision for you and your family. So if you'd like to book in some time, feel free to use those links to go straight to my calendar. It would be an absolute pleasure to meet you and help in any way that I can. And that's all for today's session. So thank you very much for joining me. I hope you found this useful. Remember, we are the #1 Golden Visa agent working in Portugal today. I like to think that's for good reason. And we do have access to exclusive investments that you won't find anywhere else. A lot of that is down to our size and scale as well. So I would strongly advise speaking to us and our team before you move forward with any investment, just as a sense check. You might be surprised at just what can be done for you and what we can build together. So as always, thank you very much for watching today. It's been a pleasure to have you along. Have a wonderful day. Take care, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.